When OP's wife develops an attachment to another man, she asks for his permission to sleep with him. While they've discussed opening up their marriage in the past, they probably didn't think things would go down like this.
My wife's 40 and I'm 44. We've been married for 16 years and have 2 elementary school-aged kids. Over 2 months ago, my wife pulled me aside one night to tell me she's been having an emotional affair with a guy she's been hanging out with for the past couple of months. I know the guy, and I was aware that they were hanging out, but my wife having opposite-sex friends has never been a problem in our marriage, as we've both been conscious of boundaries, at least until now. To me, their initial hangouts weren't unusual since this guy, who we'll call Adam, has a similar-aged kid, and their meetups were just public space playdates, at least in the beginning. On the night she confessed everything to me, this is what she said.
You know Adam, the guy I've been hanging out with? Well, yesterday I confessed to him that I think I'm having an emotional affair. You should also know that a month back he told me he was polyamorous, and this was in response to me telling him about 2 of my friends who are also polyamorous. When I told him about my feelings, he said that he felt the same way, but we now need to pause things so we can get your consent.
I was stunned to say the least, but calmly took it in, trying to be open-minded. Even though I don't know them very well, me and my wife have talked about her polyamorous friends before, and my wife's even expressed an interest in non-monogamy for us, but only as something we could do much farther in the future. She was adamant that this won't be a thing we try until the kids are out of the house, and she was also adamant that if we tried going down the route of non-monogamy, emotional attachments are to be kept to a minimum. I told her that this could be fun to discuss and explore, and that I was open to whatever enhanced our relationship, provided we protect our marriage, and she agreed. Our sex life's been quite fulfilling, even after 16 years of marriage. She's not once expressed that I'm not giving her enough physical attention, and if she were pressed about it, she would probably say that I give her too much. However, our communication has been a problem for years. It was fine before the kids, but then got progressively worse. You know the stereotypical boy-girl relationship where the girl says, "We need to talk," and the boy would rather do anything else? That's us, but reversed. I love talking about anything, and I love a healthy disagreement. Me and my wife can easily talk about what to have for dinner or what to watch on Netflix, but anything potentially problematic, like finances, household stuff, or planning for the future, she avoids like a plague. I'd sometimes insist that we address an issue, but I've also learned when to back off when it looks like it's going to make the situation worse. Also, she was recently diagnosed with ADHD, so I suspect that a combination of ADHD, anxiety, and depression is at play here. And because we also have 2 kids, everything's damn hard on top of life in general. When she brought up non-monogamy, I also saw it as a chance to start having deeper conversations again. I saw it as an opportunity to bring us closer, but these talks never quite happened like I had hoped. We would talk, but nothing too in-depth and not for very long. I attributed this to her just being generally exhausted by parenting, work, and life. I should mention that this would have been a year before we first met Adam, and I'm as confident as I can be that their friendship didn't start until a year and a half after her first mentioning of us trying non-monogamy in the future. Anyway, let's get back to present day. My wife asked for my consent to open our marriage because she wanted to have a physical and emotional relationship with Adam. During our talk, she stressed that she wanted us to continue as the primary relationship, and I asked her if she changed her mind about us being able to have emotional attachments with other people, and she said that she has. She said that she now knows she needs to have an emotional connection before having a physical relationship with someone. After discussing it for a bit, I said that I might be open to this, but would need to think about it. Then we went to bed. In the middle of the night, my heart started pounding and my mind started racing. I didn't know it at the time, but this was the first night of 2 months of bad sleep, as I would go on to develop waking insomnia. By morning, I was significantly exhausted and told my wife that my body's telling me something isn't right, so I need more time to think about it. The next 5 days were excruciatingly hard, and at one point, my wife noticed that I seemed to be progressing through the stages of grief. I conceded that she made an intriguing observation, but then wondered, what am I grieving? Before the week was up, we were contacting a marriage therapist. In my reduced state, I let my wife handle this, and she would end up picking a therapist who specialized in both marriage counseling and open relationships. The open relationship question in our therapy sessions ultimately petered out as an issue, since it was clear from the first meeting that our marriage needed more attention before we could even talk about opening it. Another problem is that while I could only talk about this with my wife and our therapist, she had her friends to talk to. I didn't have anybody else. This situation was super secretive, so I told her that I needed more help and asked if I could reach out to one of my longtime friends to get his advice. She agreed, but said that I could only talk to him and no one else. After telling him what happened, he pointed out the obvious. She was cheating on me, being selfish, and acting totally crazy. Around this time, I discovered that she was still seeing Adam several times a week. They'd go out drinking, have lunch together, or she'd go to his house at night and watch TV. She said they were just friends and that they're not doing anything wrong. I was hurt, but I wasn't thinking clearly enough to ask her to stop. 2.5 weeks after the initial bombshell, which for me meant poor sleep, a minimal appetite, therapy, and many hours of getting help from my friend, I gave her my answer. I said to her,
I choose us. I don't want to open our marriage. You can pick me or him, but not both. Also, while you're figuring this out and we're going to therapy, I want you to cut off all contact with Adam.
I'm not going to stop seeing him. We're just friends.
That's a lie. You're definitely more than friends.
I have a right to be friends with whoever I want. Stop trying to control me.
During the next 4 weeks, we continued to be civil while working through this issue, but our arguments got more heated. We'd go on a few dates to see if that would help things, and I felt like they did, but she thought they felt hollow. I think we were both right. Our arguments intensified and we both got individual therapists. We also kept going to therapy together, and at some point she started sleeping in the guest bedroom. When I realized that she was unable to cut herself off from Adam, I told her that I would be contacting Adam for an in-person meetup. When I spoke to him, he didn't want to meet up with me without my wife being there, but I let him know that I didn't care. I had 3 objectives for our meeting. One was to confirm what my wife was saying was true. Remember, she was my only source that this whole thing was actually happening. 2, to look him in the eye while asking him these questions and gauge his reaction. And 3, to tell him to stop communicating with my wife in any way while we were in therapy and still married. At first, he denied that they were more than friends, but midway through our chat, he shifted his narrative too.
Look, my feelings about your wife are private.
I just want you to stop seeing her while we're trying to figure things out. Can't you do that much for me?
Honestly, it's up to her. I support her choice in all this.
That's nice, but you're an adult who's also making a choice, and you're choosing to undermine our marriage. Got nothing to say? Well, I guess we're done here.
My wife was there the whole time and was humiliated and blamed me for it. I felt like I had to do what I did, but by the next night she said that she's made up her mind and wants a divorce. Hearing her explicitly say that she wanted a divorce was the hardest thing for me, and she sounded so sure. The next day, I called my parents, my sister, and my in-laws to give the news. I'm very close to my wife's parents. They see me as a son, and my love for them is just as strong. They knew a little bit about what we were going through, but not about Adam because my wife didn't feel like it was any of their business. In the end, though, I told them, and their response was unexpected. I was devastated about getting a divorce, but my in-laws were strangely calm. My mother-in-law said,
Give her time and space and remove yourself from her day-to-day as much as possible. We love you both no matter what happens.
I didn't really understand, but they explained that this happened to them about 30 years ago. My mother-in-law had an emotional affair, and the antidote for her was getting some time and space to let the reality of her choice set in. They explained to me that it's not guaranteed to work, but it's the best course of action to take if the marriage is to be saved. That conversation was a couple of weeks ago, and since then, I've ceased most of my daily interactions with my wife. I'll talk about the kids and mundane household stuff, but not about us. We didn't have any arguments and there were no emotional reactions. She'd tell me she's going out to see Adam, and I'd say, okay. One day, though, she found out that I told others about her emotional affair, including her mom and dad, and she became angrier than I've ever seen in my life. I assume the outburst was because her house of cards started to come crashing down. She fumed at me, saying,
That's not your story to tell.
Fine, I understand.
I didn't give her a reaction and I didn't talk about it. She said that I've ruined her relationship with her parents and possibly for the rest of her life. And I thought to myself, no, you did that. But I didn't say anything. I had a trip planned with my friend since before all this started, and it was with the friend who helped me through the drama. In the past, I'd normally share photos of my adventures with my wife, and we'd talk every night, but not this time. This brings us to the present. I have an appointment coming up to consult with a lawyer, and I'm sleeping better than I have in a long time, in addition to eating well and exercising. My wife is the love of my life, but it takes two to make things work. I'd take her back if she ultimately makes the choice to come back, but she'll have to do some significant soul-searching to convince me, and even then, I'm not going to easily accept her turnabout choice. If not, though, I need to let her go and move on.
There is most likely some serious trickled truth at play in regards to OP's story. I fully suspect that OP's wife was already sleeping with Adam, and if she wasn't when she brought up opening their marriage, she certainly was towards the end. I found it interesting that she changed her mind about them being able to have emotional attachments if they opened up their marriage. It seems like she only changed her mind because it was convenient for her at the time. If OP's wife wanting to open up their marriage wasn't enough to kill the relationship, her disregarding the grief he experienced after their talk kind of shows how little she cared about him. If she genuinely loved and cared about OP, seeing how her desires were negatively affecting him would have made her reconsider things. While I understand OP wanting to meet up with Adam, personally, I don't think there's any point. It was his wife that betrayed him. So if it wasn't Adam, it would have been someone else. If your partner ever starts prioritizing another person over you, they've checked out of the relationship, so the best thing you can do is move on and maintain your dignity. If OP were to take back his wife after all this, I fail to see how this would be healthy or work out in the long run, but I guess stranger things have happened. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Coffee and Popcorn, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.